Our season in reviews continue on today with the Anaheim Ducks this time around. And as for the Ducks, they're getting a lot better than I honestly envisioned them to be at this point. I thought they would be a little bit better, but around the same. This year, though, they took a nearly 30-point increase from last season. And that is very notable. It's very good how this Ducks team has developed, and they might be a playoff team sooner rather than later. But first and foremost, going back to 22-23, where it was the worst of it. They went 23, 47, and 12 for 58 points. They were 32nd in the National Hockey League. Just a brutal year. They obviously didn't get Connor Bedard at first overall. If they get Bedard, this whole narrative changes, and it's actually insane how good this Ducks team might be right about now. But they get, Leo Carlson, who's a very good second overall pick and was fourth in scoring this past year. And I think overall it was a good pick anyways. The following year they get slightly better, 27, 50, and 5 for 59 points. They were 30th in the NHL, so they got a little bit better. They increased by just a couple of points, but nothing too serious there in terms of, point increases and all that. But overall, it was a better year than last year. In 24-25, though, this past year was a really good season for this Anaheim Ducks team. They saw a lot of improvement. They went 35, 37, and 10 for 80 points. They were 25th in the NHL this past year. They scored 221 goals, allowed 263 for a minus 42 difference. Again, that is a 21-point increase from last year. And that really does matter, honestly. I think they had a very good season. I thought the team overall really improved. I think there were definitely things under Greg Cronin that were not particularly great. Again, there were a lot of criticism with the locker room and stuff, but even still, the team improved standings wise. They got to 80 points this past year, and firing Cronin, bringing in Joel Quenneville, whether or not you think that's the right decision or not, the team will get better, and there's no doubt about that. This past year, they went 21, 18, and 2 at home, and 14, 19, and 8 on the road. They scored an average of 2.65 goals for per game, which was 30th in the NHL. They really struggled to score. And then they would allow an average of 3.18 goals against, which is 22nd. Slightly better, but not as good as it was in the years where they were competitive, obviously, and just it wasn't that great to begin with. They had an 11.8 power play percentage, which was last in the NHL. The 32nd best, 11%. Or I guess it's more 12%, but even still, that is pretty bad for a team in the NHL. And then they had a 29 ranked penalty kill, which is at 74.2%. Overall, just the numbers advanced were pretty bad, but the point increase and how some of these players did offensively is really something to take away here. They had 7 players score more than 40 points this past year, and I do think that really does matter. Again, I understand that, 40 points, it won't win you, it won't get you into the playoffs or anything, but the Ducks were much better than they were last year, and I really do think that it's something to take away from this year, and even Pat Verbeek said he thinks the team can make the playoffs next season, which I'm not so sure about that. But overall, things are looking pretty damn good for the Anaheim Ducks. Starting off with Troy Terry, who is first in scoring with 77 games played, 21 goals, 34 assists, which is first on the team, for 55 points, which is also first on the team. Terry has been leading this Anaheim Ducks team for many years and was very good this year. I think that he has the overall offensive talent to, again, carry this team into the playoffs. It's just a matter of how all the other guys will develop and how they will break into the playoffs, possibly next year. But overall, I thought Terry had a really good season. He's been phenomenal for the last couple of years. Mason McTavish was second in scoring, 76 games played, 22 goals, which is first on the team, 30 assists for 52 points. Now, one of the things with Anaheim that I really noticed here was they didn't have somebody who particularly ran away with the scoring. And again, the scoring definitely needs to improve next year. That's a massive factor. They have the potential and the players to really do it. But they had 5 guys score 20 or more goals. And I think that really is a positive there for sure. And I think that you have that depth down the lineup. That's really going to help out the Ducks here in the future. Frank Vetrano, 81 games played, 21 goals, 24 assists for 45 points as well. I thought Vetrano had a decent year. There were rumors of him possibly getting traded, but they obviously decided to keep him around with the team. I don't think it's a bad idea there either. He's been a good fit there. Leo Carlsson, as I mentioned, in his sophomore season, 76 games played, 20 goals, 25 assists for 45 points. So he had the same amount of points there as Vetrano. I thought Carlsson had a good season too. Again, just like I thought the top five generally did. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think you're going to see a lot of breakouts next year with these players, but Carlson had a good season, I think, as well. And then Cutter Gauthier, a rookie in this year's class, had 82 games played, 20 goals, 24 assists for 44 points as well. I thought Gauthier had a good season. Again, you know, the whole thing with Philly. I am a Flyers fan, but I'm not like the other Flyers fans where I just hate the guy. He's a very good player. Obviously, I don't understand why he left the team, but still. Very good player. Had over 40 points in his rookie season. This is a guy who's going to tear up the league in a couple of seasons. So I like Gauthier from that perspective. Jackson Lacombe took a big step this past year with the Ducks. 75 games played, 14 goals, 29 assists for 43 points. I really do think that a guy like Lacombe, like, he's one of the more underrated guys in terms of just defensemen for the Anaheim Ducks. Seeing the overall numbers that this guy can entail, he was an underrated player there this past year. And I think that he could be like maybe their number one or number two guy heading into the following seasons. He's not going to be a guy who like knocks your socks off with his offensive talents. But this is a guy who can play good two ways. I think that really does matter. So Lacombe had a good season. Ryan Strome, 82 games played, 10 goals, 31 assists for 41 points as well. I thought Strome had a really good season too. I loved what this guy did this past year. I think he's been phenomenal. But overall, Strome, I think, has had a good season too. Alex Killorn, 82 games played, 19 goals, 18 assists, 37 points with Anaheim there as well. Trevor Zegras, this one's going to be a little bit interesting. 57 games played, 12 goals, 20 assists for 32 points. I really preached at the beginning of the season that I really did think that Zegras was going to have a bounce back year and come back to fruition. I think the injuries really played a factor in this guy, but I'm not so sure he is that kind of player where he's going to score a ton of points at this stage in his career. I just don't know if I'm a fan of that, honestly. So Zegras, I guess we'll have to see, but overall, not a bad player, but definitely things need to improve here moving forward. And then Olin Zellweger, 62 games played, 7 goals, 13 assists for 20 points as well. Zellweger, not a bad forward, not a bad defenseman, not a forward there either. I think he's very talented too. And I think overall, this whole Ducks team is mostly young. You have some veterans around here. You got Strome, you got Killorn. I think what they're really missing is one guy who can really just score offensively and create a lot of offensive plays, like a playmaker, I guess you could say. And yes, I am referring to Mitch Marner partially with that. You look at the goaltending, Lucas Dostal led the way, 23, 23, and 7 with a 3.10 and a .903. I really did think that Dostal had a good season this year. Honestly, I I believe that he is one of the more underrated goalies in the NHL. I know his numbers aren't that great at the end of the season, but even still, like, his numbers, like throughout the year up until the end were very good. I think that a .903 is kind of like undermining how good he was this year, so I got to give a lot of credit to Dostal. He's been phenomenal. John Gibson, 11, 11, and 2 with a 2.77 and a .912. Honestly, I thought that Gibson had a good season too after a few years of just like, not being that great. I think he's probably better in this more of like a 1A, 1B type situation, even though he only played, 25 games this year as opposed to him carrying the workload earlier in his career. But I like him more at this role than I do at him being like absolutely overworked when it comes to playing. And then Ville Husso, who was acquired midway through the season. We'll get into that trade in a moment. 2, 6, and 3 with a 3.47 and a .890. Some of those numbers are with the Red Wings. I guess I should show the trade right here on screen. They obviously acquired Husso for future considerations from Detroit. The AHL needed another goaltender. Gibson got hurt at one point, I think, so Husso came up for a little bit, played a couple of games. But overall, I I don't think he's under contract next year, but I don't really expect him to be back next year, if I'm being honest, with Anaheim. But I guess we'll see. Again, I could be wrong. The Ducks definitely made some trades this year that were very interesting. They obviously, well, first and foremost, let's go through the smaller ones first. They obviously got Shillington back from the Islanders in exchange for future considerations. They had two trades like that. That was with the Brock Nelson deal. Islanders had to get rid of him. They give him to Anaheim. There you go. The first trade they made this year was trading Cam Fowler and a 27 fourth round pick to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a 27 second and Jeremy Biatka-Butkwa. I believe I'm saying that right. I I low-key think now if you redid that trade over, you could have gotten a first round pick for Fowler because he was that good in St. Louis. Like, he came there immediately and it was phenomenal. But I still do overall think like it's not like it's a bad move in my opinion. I think that Fowler is still a very solid defenseman, very sound and good at his play. But yeah, overall, I think that Anaheim could have gotten a little bit back more in that trade. They also acquired Jacob Trouba this past year from the Rangers in exchange for Vakaheinen and a fourth round pick. Trouba wasn't terrible with the Ducks. I think next year you could trade him for like maybe a second round pick if he's at a reduced cost. I don't think it's a bad idea there for sure. And then another trade they made, the last one was acquiring or trading Brian Dumoulin over to the Devils in exchange for a second round pick in this year's draft, and then Herman Traff there as well. So overall, the Ducks made some solid trades, some questionable trades, but I think Pat Verbeek was more active in the trade market than he's been in previous years. So now taking a look at the AHL with the San Diego Gulls, who definitely had a year where it could have been better, to be honest with you. 29, 35, 5-3 for 66 points. They were 28th in the NHL and they missed the playoffs. Or the NHL, the AHL and missed the playoffs. They weren't really that far out. They were only like 6 games below 500, but they had an injury with their goaltending. That's why Husso even came in the first place, and it just didn't work out. And honestly, it sucks, but it is what it is. They had some guys, though, who produced at a pretty good rate. One of those guys being Tristan Luneau, who had 59 games played this past year, 9 goals, 43 assists for 52 points. He's one of the prospects. We'll get into there in just a moment. Ryan Carpenter, 72 games played, 19 goals, 30 assists, 49 points. Sasta Pasujov, 43 games played, 17 goals, 28 assists for 45 points. Yan Misak, 68 games played, 18 goals, 24 assists, 42 points. And then Sam Colangelo, who had 40 games played in the AHL, 22 goals, 18 assists for 40 points too. Luneau and Colangelo are ranked in some of the top prospects for the Ducks. I'm not sure if Colangelo really is right now, but we'll actually talk about him here just because why not? But in the pipeline for the Anaheim Ducks in terms of prospects, they got a good system going up there with the goals. It sucks they didn't make the playoffs, but you have a good system going on over there. You have Beckett Seneca as their number one prospect. And again, I do want to preface this. A lot of their prospects have actually moved on and playing in the NHL now, so it's honestly kind of a short list. Seneca, 56 games played, 36 goals, 50 assists for 86 points in the OHL. I thought Seneca had a good season. I think this kid has a lot of talent, has a lot of offensive talent. I think just the overall health is a little bit of a concern with me. He missed some time on his draft year. He missed some time this year as well, but still a very good player. Tristan Luneau, as I mentioned earlier, 59 games played, 9 goals, 43 assists, 52 points. He actually played 6 games in the NHL this past year. So Luneau, I think has a good future coming there. With the Anaheim Ducks, possibly. He could be like a third or fourth line guy, maybe in the future, honestly. I think those some of the guys you need to develop. Stan Stolberg as well. He was drafted in last year's draft with Seneca. 47 games played, 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points in the SHL. He played 10 games in the AHL. This guy is mean from what I can remember. He's a mean player. He plays with that kind of edge to his game, and I think that for a guy like Solberg, he could be an NHLer as soon as next year, honestly. He has that talent, he has that power, and he could be like a third pairing, defensive, hard-hitting defenseman. I think he could be that kind of player. And then getting to the other two, Sam Colangelo, who I mentioned earlier, 40 games played, 22 goals, 18 assists for 40 points, had 32 games played in the NHL this past year. Now, Colangelo, for me, is a little bit interesting because he's somebody who I didn't really know about. I was watching a couple of Ducks games this season. Again, I watch all 32 teams, or I try to at least. Colangelo looked good in the games that I watched. He was scoring goals. He was making offensive plays. I like this kid, and I think he could be a full-time NHLer next year. I really do think so. And then Yegor Sidorov there as well. 59 games played, 17 goals, 17 assists, 34 points in the American Hockey League. I believe this was his first year in the AHL, so not a bad year if that was that. But overall, Anaheim's prospect pool is obviously not as good as it once was, but they have some gems down there that I think you can really work with here heading into next season and the coming years to come. And obviously, too, they have a first-round pick in this year's draft. I think it's 8th overall or 9th overall, but even still, the Ducks are in a good position. So they have that first round pick, as I mentioned. They have a second round pick, which belongs to Winnipeg. They have 2/3. One of them belongs to Toronto. They have a fourth, which is Boston's. They have 2/5. One's their own, one's Edmonton's. And then they have a sixth and a seventh. So they're picking in every round this year, essentially. But I really do think this is going to be the last year where we see the Ducks kind of picking in a high spot. I think we're going to be seeing here, moving on into the future, they're going to be picking a lot like lower in the drafts. And I think they're going to have a lot lesser picks because they're going to want to buy in and make some more, try and make the playoffs next year. Now, your UFAs and RFAs. Your UFAs is not that big of a list. Robbie Fabry, Brock McGinn, and Oliver Shillington. I wouldn't be shocked if you let go of all of those. I think 2 of the 3 were injured for a lot of the year, and Shillington was a midseason acquisition. I'm not so sure you want to bring either of those guys back. Your RFAs is where it's interesting. Mason McTavish, Isaac Lundestrom, Brett Liason, Drew Hellison, and Lucas Dostal. So the big ones for me are McTavish and Dostal. The other 3, they're good players, but I definitely think they're not as big as McTavish and Dostal. I think those are 2 you want to lock up there immediately, especially if you want to go out and get somebody like Mitch Marner, per se. And I said that at the beginning. I really do think that is a possibility if they want to be better, like in the short term. You got to go out and make a big name free agent. You got to go get a big name guy. And I think, honestly, if they can get Mitch Marner, I think this team might be a playoff team next season. I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't know if Quenneville, honestly. I know they're going to be a better team next year. I just don't know if Quenneville is the right guy to boost them right into the playoffs. It might take a year or 2. I guess we'll have to see. But right now, the future's looking up for the Anaheim Ducks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video down below and subscribe if you're new. That'd be greatly appreciated. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.